Good afternoon and welcome to the SES Training Q&A session. Starting today, we're going to go ahead and demo how to complete a full supervisory activity, and in this case, an exam. So today we're going to go ahead and go into the training environment, and using the exact same instructions that any learner would use, the Your Turn exercises, we're going to use those to to complete an end-to-end exams. We're going to initiate a supervisory activity, we're going to schedule it, then sign in as the EIC, and define the scope, send the scope for review, and then have the reviewer mark the scope complete. And that's where we'll stop. And then next time we'll continue. So this is my credential sheet that I'm going to use, and we see that the company that I'm assigned is Globex. So that's the company we're going to use to conduct this exam. One thing I would like to point out here is that please note the number that you're assigned. So in this case we have 398. You should be signing in with the username and the number that you've been assigned. And if you're assigning someone as a reviewer, make sure that you select the number that you have on this sheet. So now let's go ahead and go to the Flex environment, the learning management system that contains the training. And I'm going to launch the Initiating a Supervisory Activity course. And I'm going to go ahead and skip right to the Your Turn exercise and follow the steps there. So first we're going to log into the training environment as Christine, Staff Director. And then of course I'm going to use the number that is in my credential sheet. And then we're going to initiate a supervisory activity.
All right. Okay, so I'm just going to do a full scope. And then here, for this particular exercise, you get more detailed. So I'm going to go ahead and select mortgage origination, and I'm going to select mortgage lending as the business activity. And the reason we've given you specific ones to choose from is because those are the only ones that have information requests associated with them. If you were to select anything else, you wouldn't see any IRs. This is an optional page, so I'm going to go ahead and skip it. And then here we ask you to add the EIC. So step number 3, assign SAM examiner. And again, that number is very important. We found some folks don't pay attention to that number, and then they don't have access to that account. So I have to do SAM. I know there's hundreds of them in there, but note that you can also type it. And that's, oops, what you should do, 398. And so 398 is the number assigned to me, so I got to stick with that. And that's all it says to do here, just to add the EIC. I'm going to click next, and it doesn't say to send it for review, so mark it complete. Oops. So I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to schedule the supervisory activity. And then what I do is I click on the supervisory activities main menu, and then it'll appear here. It takes a few seconds. So you might need to click refresh, and so there it is. So I'm going to write that down. Make sure you write down your supervisory activity or number, supervisory activity ID. So that's it. Now we've scheduled it. You can see it's in the scheduled milestone. Now, after it's scheduled, there isn't much the staff director can do. He or she can add participants, but that is the next activity. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the Flex, our learning management system, our training, and then go to the managing participants. Before I do that, are there any questions? Does this look familiar? You've already done this?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, good. So I'm going to go ahead and click managing. Oops. Well, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and click managing participants here. That's the second module. And then I'm going to go directly to the Your Turn exercise. And so here it says log into the training environment as the EIC, navigate to your newly scheduled supervisory activity, and then add the following people. So we're going to add Maggie, reviewer, as the reviewer, and then we're going to add George as an examiner. And I could do it as the staff director, but I'm going to go ahead and do it as the EIC. So I'm going to go back to the training environment, log out, sign in as Sam Examiner 398. And now if I scroll down and click EIC, I should see it there, 739. Or I could also go to supervisory activities, and that'll be the first one. So I click on the number, and now I'm able to move forward. I should have shown you that this button is not available for the staff director or staff user. So this button becomes available only for the EIC. So now I could click define scope, but we're on the participants module. So I'm gonna go ahead and add participants. Ask me to add Maggie. And again, this is another one where people have chosen the wrong reviewer. So again, you gotta stick to the same one. And then it was George. Okay, so add participants. Okay. Can anyone tell me when I might use Maggie? How I might use Maggie?
Well, if you want to send it for review before you send it out to the company, I think that's what Maggie would be for, correct?
Right. So send what exactly for review?
Well, you send the activity, the essay to make sure that everything is there.
True. So various components of the essay can be sent to Maggie. So like you could send the scope, you could send the plan, you could send scope and plan. There are MRAs and other items that you could send for review. So various components of the supervisory activity. Exactly. And we're going to do that in just a bit. So we've done that. So we're now done with this Your Turn exercise. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this. Of course, you would have to, complete the knowledge check, and that's what's going to mark it complete. So if I go back to the entire list, next we have the scope, managing the scope. I'm going to go directly to the Your Turn exercise. And so it says, log in as the EIC, navigate to the summary or scope page, define the scope, include these 3 AFRs, and then send the scope for review. So this is where Maggie comes in. So we're going to send it to Maggie. She's the only one we can send it to because she's assigned the reviewer role. And then we're not going to add any additional reviewers. Okay, so let's do that. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to click on scope. And we see that it's not started. So I'm going to define scope. Let's say that we want to do all of last year. So January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. And then here you can go ahead and update your business types and business activities if you wanted. This one, it was compliance and internal routines. What was it? Management and board and policies and procedures. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and send scope for review. And if you hadn't added Maggie previously, she wouldn't appear here. No additional reviewers, and I'm going to send scope for review. Okay, so now we see that it's in the in review status. I'm going to go ahead and go back to our training. I'm going to go back to the main page. And go to this one. Review the scope as the primary reviewer. Okay, so this is the last one that I'm going to show before we stop for questions. And then I'll continue next week. So your turn. So now it says log in as the assigned reviewer. So we would log in as Maggie. And then we're going to go ahead and complete the review scope task. We're going to click on the details to review the details. We're going to go ahead and update the scope, maybe upload the document, and then leave a comment after completing the review, and then approve the scope. So let's do that as Maggie. So log out. And again, the number thing, Maggie reviewer 398. It has to be the same number. And then you'll see the task here. This is always where the tasks appear. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And so as the reviewer, I can see the summary level information and then some task details. But if I want to see the entire supervisory activity, I would click here to review. And so that's where I can actually make the changes. So if I want to update anything about the scope, and it said that I should, so I'm going to go ahead and click update scope and then upload any document. Oh. And then I can make any other changes if I wanted, but I'm going to go ahead and click save scope for now. And then notice that I was taken to a separate window. So you would just make any changes here, and you could either exit out or just go back to the previous window, and that's where you would make your decision. So I'm going to go ahead and approve the scope, and then I'm going to mark it as complete. So the task goes away, and then if we were to sign back in, or let me see if I can even see it through here. So now we see that it's in the planning zone. And if I actually, well, let's say scope. Yeah, so the scope is now complete. And it went through a review, and that information can be found there too. All right, so that is where I'm going to go ahead and stop. I'll go ahead and demo the rest later, but this gives you an idea of, if you haven't gone through it, the whole shifting windows and how you should be following the directions in the your turn exercise.